What's going on, guys? Today we're looking at a controversial one, what Durianrider eats to, I guess, stay lean. I've got two videos here. One of them is this one, which was from back in 2013, sort of a what I eat in a day. The other one is a more recent one from last year, which, a video from 7 years ago, it seems like he's changed a little bit what he's eating. As most of you know, he's a very polarizing character, but he does have good points. Like, he called out that specialized SL7 recall before anyone else did. He was also the first person I saw publicly using the sugar water thing. That's where I got the idea from, looked into it, tried it out myself, and it was awesome. I still use it to this day. So despite what you might think about him, he does have some proven good points and some things that actually work. So I think it's worth giving him time to look through what he's doing, look through what he's eating, and sort of have a discussion around if that could work, if it would be appropriate to follow.
So you just got out of bed, drinking some water, having a quart of water. Looking around, so I'm not sure if I should do a running race this morning or go out on the bike. But the running race starts at 8 o'clock, so I've got an hour and a half to make up my mind.
His voice has changed, and like, he looks totally different, and his voice has changed so much. It's pretty crazy. I mean, he's been using testosterone. He's been public about that. I think he also got something done with his teeth. I think maybe he got like veneers put in because his voice has changed a lot, and I think maybe he got a crown put in or something, because his voice changing that much wouldn't just be from the test. It must be, some sort of dental thing. But he's a totally different person going back and watching these videos.
I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe it's a bit cold for riding.
But he was actually leaner back here. So actually whatever he was eating and doing here made him get skinnier and leaner. So maybe we can read into that a little bit as well.
What's that little escapade doing in there? Hang on, put this date's in the back of my jersey. What's this guy got doing? That's a funny looking date, isn't it? It's a funny looking date. Hey, come on, little buddy. So he just wants to. Come on. Go.
I'm sorry, that's disgusting. I freak out if there was a cockroach in my food. It's rushing up against all that. Ugh, that is foul. Fuck.
It's a date with legs. Come on, little buddy. You can go outside. Come on. For a ride, actually, I'm going to smash down a litre of water. Always when you...
Okay, so now he's back from the ride. He's going to have some water. So essentially, looks like all he had was dates and water before the ride. So, I mean, that seems fine to me. Carbohydrate source dates can be pretty filling. He doesn't actually train that much. So I'm guessing maybe he went out for an hour and a half ride. Because this was in winter, so it looks pretty cold. So that seems fine to me. Some dates before a ride, good carb source. Keep you full, keep your stomach settled.
Wake up, smash down a litre of water, come back from training or whatever, smash down a litre of water. I'm going to have drink the water before my banana smoothie. If you're thirsty after a meal, you didn't drink enough water before that meal.
I mean, the chugging the water seems a bit excessive. I mean, it's good to be hydrated, but most of this water is just going to be pissing out, which, again, is fine. It's not doing any harm just pissing out clear water, but could he have had half? If it's in winter, he's gone out for a short ride, could he have had half this and still be the same level of hydration? Probably. I would just find this extremely inconvenient to be constantly running to the toilet to go to piss. So I get the message. Seems a little bit unnecessary from my point of view, especially in the cold.
That's not a sign you're hydrated. Is you can smash down a quart.
So massive blender full of sugar and bananas. I think he talks about it in a sec.
Around 100 grams sugar. So we have here about 22 bananas, around 100 grams sugar, and a big handful, about 100 grams of dried fruit straps from Fruit Wise, the SA dried fruit people. So that's about 350 calories for the fruit straps, about 100, 400 calories. Around 28, 2,900 calories for this one.
All right, so I guess a couple of talking points about this. The first thing, I guess, is how can you eat this much carbs and not get fat? Is probably the most basic question. But then people bring up, well, isn't this much sugar going to give you diabetes? That sort of thing. So I would say, in terms of getting fat, the reason why this diet works for him is because he keeps his fat very low. Think about it this way. If you were carb loading for a race and you do 2 or 3 days massively increasing your carb load, you don't get fat. Where does that carbs go when you eat it? It's primarily stored as glycogen. That's the first place that carbs are stored. So essentially, excess carbohydrates firstly will be stored as glycogen. So there's that pathway there. If you do manage to eat more than that and saturate that, which is already the body has massive capacity for glycogen storage. If you do manage to overeat on carbs above that, the process of converting dietary carbohydrates to fat is called de novo lipogenesis. You can look that up. And that process of converting dietary carbohydrates to stored body fat is not very efficient. It's only about 75% efficient. So to actually convert dietary carbohydrate to stored body fat, it costs the body a lot of energy. So even if you do manage to get that stage, you're still increasing your energy expenditure to do that process. Dietary fat, on the other hand, isn't the same. Converting dietary fat to stored body fat is almost 100% efficient. So there's no energy burn to actually do that. So essentially what I'm getting at here is your capacity for dealing with large amounts of carbohydrates in the body is quite good. You've got your glycogen storage, you've then got the process of converting it to body fat if need be, which is already extremely inefficient, which is a good thing for us because it burns more energy. So essentially that can work really well. That's why he can eat a heap of carbs and not get fat. The place where this breaks down is if he eats too much fat. Now this only works if you're eating low fat, because if you're eating this diet with this amount of carbs, and you eat too much fat, you're quite screwed because your fat oxidation isn't very good, and that excess fat you're eating is going to be stored as fat. So for this to work, you have to keep your dietary fat low. So I think Harley says he tries to keep his fat, if he's trying to stay lean, under 20 grams of fat a day, which is very low. So what will happen is, let's say you're doing this diet and 2 or 3 days a week you slip up and you eat foods that are way too high in fat. That compounds and your body has no way to process that, and it's going to store it as fat. So basically this works very well in and of its own, but there's not much margin for error in terms of diet. Now for me, I wouldn't want to eat like this. Fatty foods taste good. I would rather have a more targeted approach where I'm eating high amounts of carbohydrates at specific times around training than just eating a normal mixed diet at other times that gives me that breathing room that if I do happen to eat a higher fat meal, if I'm busy at work and I ran out of time, I go up and get a Rebel Whopper from Hungry Jack's. I don't want that meal to completely throw off my diet and cause body fat storage, which it would if you're eating this huge amount of carbohydrates. So scientifically, there is a basis for it, and there is a reason why it works to keep you lean, but you do have to really stay in those guardrails, and that's kind of what I don't like. And personally, this food he's eating, I mean, a massive banana smoothie doesn't sound that appealing to me. I don't really like dates. That really low fat thing I don't really like. So that's an explanation of the fat loss side of things and how he can stay lean doing this. That's how it works. And that's why it works. There's a scientific explanation for that. Let's see what else he's eating. Go to the evening. Okay, so he's having a big bowl of rice with looks like some curry on top. That works. Huge amount of carbs. Glycogen is going to be stocked up. The chance that he's actually overeating at this level is pretty low. The amount of carbohydrates you have to eat to the point where your glycogen stores are saturated and you're going into that pathway where you're converting dietary carbohydrates to fat is extremely high. It's very difficult to eat that much. But as I said, it's very easy to trip yourself up if you're eating too much fat when you're doing this, and it won't work. So let's go to the more recent one and see what he's eating. This was last year, day in the off season. This is where I think he was doing and he's still doing it, I think, where he's trying to bulk up a bit. So let's play it through. We've got Natasha here buying some ice cream.
Just doing banana smooth. Putting some bananas, put a bit of creatine in there. You don't need that. Just doing it. You need to.
Creatine, good for cycling if you're only racing on the flat and you want to get stronger. If you are vegan or plant-based as well, it may have additional benefits because naturally your creatine levels can drop off. So if you want to be a good sprinter and you don't care much about going uphill, creatine being a good supplement to try out. So he's making a smoothie here, creatine, bananas, and it looks like some sugar as well.
You do need sugar, right? You do need sugar. You do need fruit. I also put in some pea protein. You don't need that. I just put it in there.
Okay, so he's putting protein in this one because I think back in the day, 6 or 7 years ago, he was keeping a protein very low. And that was another thing I bring up following this is if you're a cyclist, you're not doing strength training, you're just riding your bike, you want to be very fit on the bike, very lean, very skinny, you don't need much protein. Like you can be on the lower end of the protein recommendations per day. So you might aim for 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day of protein, which is quite low, quite easy to get. I'd say for this diet though, where you would come undone is if you're doing regular strength training or if you're not cycling. If you're doing more of a strength-based sport, you're going to want to get more protein in, probably closer to 1.5, 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And in that case, you're probably going to need more than just banana smoothies and rice and dates.
And carbs. You always need carbs. So you do need sugar, you do need fruit, you do need rice. You don't. This is optional stuff.
So the other thing that comes up a lot is, well, if I'm eating this much sugar, okay, I might not get fat, but won't I get diabetes? And no, that won't happen. The biggest risk factors for diabetes is being overweight, having excess body fat, which he doesn't have, and simply eating high amounts of carbs and spiking your blood sugar isn't going to give you diabetes. You're going to get diabetes through insulin resistance, through being overweight, and simply spiking your blood sugar or eating a lot of carbs, that's not the cause of diabetes. So it doesn't need to be worried about that. Train a road. If you actually, a lot of people do ask, like, oh, I want to fuel my training, but I'm kind of worried drinking that much sugar, like, is that going to be bad for my health? Am I going to get diabetes? Train a Road actually have come around and they've done a really good podcast on it. I'll link that podcast down below. If you're interested in the interaction between having a high carbohydrate diet as an athlete and you're potentially worried about getting diabetes, definitely worth a listen. Link below. They go into a lot more detail on that.
But you can see how much time this.
4 dates.
So a ginger beer he had,
Cliff Bar.
4 dates, a
Bit of
Cliff
tinned
Bar,
beetroot here. Just chopping through that. It's a good little snack.
beetroot.
And got one of these. And I'm gonna try one of these little things out as well. And got a bit of on sale, bit of protein. Goal in January for me is add weight to the body. Because there's gonna be a cereal there, so you can sort of see the
Right, so he's making up his cereal.
This calorie sustain, bit of almond milk on there as well.
Almond milk, I would recommend, if possible, soy milk. It's higher in protein. If you're having milk, you may as well get a bit more protein in. Almond milk, I mean, this one, the Inner Goodness, I think that's the one from Aldi. So it will be fortified with calcium, which is good. But if you're having milk, I prefer like a Vitasoy, the light one, higher in protein, lower in fat. And I think tastes better. I don't really like almond milk, but sort of personal preference there. But yeah, just be careful if you are doing these plant-based milks that you're looking for one that is higher in protein and is fortified with calcium.
We just have just not too much sugar now. It's just that's enough. Just kidding. You don't have hot girlfriends if you're a beta. Alpha is sugar. There we go.
So again, this, as I kind of said before, this diet works. There is a scientific basis for why eating like this can keep you lean. The problem I have, again, firstly, I mean, this looks, I could have, a bowl of cereal. I mean, I eat cereal, but it's the other stuff. Now, he's eating a bit more fat here. So actually this food he's eating here, where he had the shake with the protein powder, he had like the plant-based chicken strip things, he had the little cookie. Like that, this sort of stuff looks more like a regular diet that I'd want to eat. But still, if he was only doing these super high carb, very low fat days, this is where I'd come unstuck because I don't want to eat like this. I probably prefer a more mixed approach, slightly reducing the carbohydrates at non-training time. So again, I'm not saying restricted carbohydrates. I still eat a relatively high carbohydrate diet, but just not dumping the sugar in. And then, because if you're dumping all these carbs in, you're then having to restrict the fat more. Whereas I know I prefer my diet to be a bit more mixed. I like the taste of fatty foods. I like to be able to eat them. It's just a part of my diet. So to do that, you're going to need to reduce the carbohydrates a bit. So I wouldn't do this full carb dump. But that's not to say it doesn't work. If you want to follow the diet, I would say there's a scientific basis for why it does work, as I explained earlier.
Sauces, there's a bit of barbecue sauce in this. This is the first bowl.
So this is rice, vegan chicken stuff, and barbecue sauce. I mean, this looks kind of gross. I don't think I'd want to eat this. Maybe if this was into more like a stir fry with some vegetables properly mixed in, then I'd probably eat it. But as it is here, it's a bit, ugh. All right, so he's going to get into, just to wrap this up, he's going to get into his dinner.
Chance, even his wife's overweight. I did the bottle of lemonade. Forgot to add that. This is from Coles Australia. It's full sugar and no artificial colours, flavours. Meatball. Where's my pizza lemonade, mate? Meatball. So there's good sugar content. There's no fake stuff in there. Sugar-wise, it is 12 grams of sugar per 100, so 150 grams. So 30 times 5, 150 grams of sugar.
As I said, again, just to reiterate, I've explained the reason why this can work. This isn't going to make him fat or give him diabetes if he's sticking to this diet. The problems I have with this, firstly, again, if you're drinking like if you're just chugging bottles of lemonade, you're really locking yourself in terms of your fat intake. You can't up your fat intake if you're drinking this stuff because you will gain weight. So that's what I don't like. And then you're starting to get to the point of, I know I have said in other videos, I'm a fan of always going a little bit above. So trying to overfuel, getting slightly more carbohydrates while you're training than you need. But I mean, drinking bottles of lemonade at night, does he need this amount? I don't know. Doesn't seem like, I mean, what? He's not training that much. I'm not sure if like all this, I kind of get the sentiment, the high carbohydrate thing, but it does seem excessive. I mean, does he need this? I mean, if this was me, I'd probably say skip the soft drink, have water or something, and then have a bit of dessert. Have something taste a bit nicer. That's probably what I'd do. You probably get a similar amount of calories in, probably a bit higher fat, bit lower in carbs, but I would prefer to have that as a dessert. So it's just, yeah, I do think, so even if this does work scientifically in terms of performance and weight loss, it's not how I would want to spend my calories in the day. So to summarize there, that's why it works for him. And I would say pick up the good bits from that. The things that I'm getting from that is the fueling, the hydration, things like that. Is that a diet I would want to eat personally? Not really. But that's not to say that that diet doesn't work. It's obviously working for him. So I take the learnings out of that for the things I like and apply them to how I want to eat my diet. And that's how you can end up with a diet that works for you, is by incorporating the good bits you've learned, but then doing it in a way that suits how you like to eat and how you want to live. So I'll end the video there, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.